Hey, good morning, everybody. Timmy Gibson, former evangelical, fundamental, Bible thumping, tongue talking pastor, now agnostic. Um, I recently was asked a question that I thought I should address on my show here, and that is what were some of the biggest struggles that I faced during my deconstruction process? And I wrote down a few things that I wanted to talk about. And I want to say this, life's a journey, right? All we know is what we know, and until we learn something different, right? I recently had someone ask me if, I thought I was a victim or a perpetrator. And I think, if I'm honest, I think, aren't we all at times the victim, and aren't we all at times the perpetrator, right? We're the ones that break people's heart, and then we are also ones who have had our heart broken. So, I in this journey, I don't focus really on being a victim. And what I mean by that is a victim of extreme religious beliefs. Um, I've done my share of therapy and have worked through so many of the things that I really, really struggled with coming to grips with because, I've got three. There's a lot more, I'm sure, than three, but there's three primary challenges that I faced during my deconstruction process. And some of these are going to be unique to me because I was in the full-time ministry. I was a pastor. It was my career. It was my life. It was my identity. It wasn't just like something I did on the weekends. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like, for me, it wasn't a Sunday thing. Nor Christianity for me at that time wasn't just a Sunday thing. It was my life. And that's why, people that say, well, if you're not a Christian now, you never really were a Christian. That is just such a moronic, ignorant statement. Because for me personally, it was everything to me. I earnestly was seeking God and seeking the wisdom of the Holy Spirit. I was seeking um, the things of God and was one of those people that took it seriously. I seriously sought God and was in it to win it. Like this. And those of you that are Christian, I would assume you feel that way about yourself, and you can't imagine yourself walking away. I couldn't either. Like, I couldn't either. The fact that I am where I am today, believing what I believe today, it's as shocking to me as it would be you. I mean, it's I can't believe it. Like, frankly, I can't believe it. But I'm very, very, very thankful for the journey and for the light that I've come to understand. Again, this is my journey, right? This is my YouTube channel, therefore I talk about my story, and that's just what it is. And if Christianity is working for you, great. This channel, my channel specifically, is really for those who are also going through deconstruction, um, like I did, or reconstruction, like I am. As always, right? Life's a journey. It's continually a journey. We always learn. We always grow. Hopefully, um, life is just one big long learning process. Um, but also, those if you have questions, to be able to support other people and say, hey, listen, it's okay to have questions. Like, you don't have to bury those doubts. You don't have to hide behind some kind of false sense of certainty whenever you're uncertain. So let me just share with you the three things that were, like I said, the three main challenges that I faced as a former evangelical pastor going through my deconstruction process. Probably the first and most obvious would be my beliefs. I mean, I went from being 100% certain and knowing what life was all about, knowing there was a God, knowing there was a heaven to gain and a hell to shun. I went from knowing these things by faith, as much as you can know those things, which you can't. You can't know those things. But I had faith and I believed in those things. But I was so certain of it, you know? I was so absolutely certain. So that's the biggest thing I would say. That's the biggest challenge that I faced, is that my belief system was flipped upside down. I mean, I went from believing that the Bible was the Word of God to believing the Bible is some just book that people wrote 2,000 years ago, and there is no divinity in the Bible whatsoever. And not saying there's not some wisdom, there's not some great stories, there's lessons to learn. Of course, that's true of any book. That's true of any book. I can't tell you how many books. I'm an avid reader. I read about a book a week. Some not every week, but I typically read about a book a week, at least 2-3 books a month at least. And I always glean something, even from novels, even from mystery, fiction. Like I learn just valuable lessons from everything that I read, really. And so, of course, I'm not going to say that the Bible doesn't have many great lessons to potentially be pulled from its pages, of course. Absolutely. But, and I said this on another one of my episodes, like it was that verse that you shall know the truth and the truth will set you free. That particular verse was a driving force in my life that ultimately, I don't know why my nose is running. What led me to eventually really ask the honest question of, is what I believe true? Could I be wrong? And the answer is, could I be believing the wrong thing? Absolutely. I think that's a question that everybody should ask themselves at all times throughout life. Am I looking at this honestly? I think that politically, and trust me, I'm not going to talk about politics here, but when it comes to politics, I don't believe in just aligning with any particular group. I can think for myself. I can research and do the reading and try to find out where the biases are and who's biased and who's not, and where the truth is, and sifting through all that information. I don't just jump on board with one side and say, yep, everything they say is the golden truth and everything the other side says is deceit and lies and whatever. I personally just don't function that way. And that, I'm thankful for that, because that is one of the reasons why I walked away from religion, because I just couldn't buy in hook, line, and sinker with everything. Clearly, there are some things within Christianity that are good. There just is, at least my perspective. I learned some really good stuff about being kind and caring and generous and charitable. And, there's so many wonderful things that I learned. But what I learned is that doesn't, you don't only learn those in Christianity. You don't only learn those through the Bible. Like, these are things that I've learned as I've journeyed now away from Christianity. I'm meeting a bunch of great non-believers that also believe in charity and kindness and grace and, all the same things. And I'm like, wait, I thought you had to be a Christian to believe those things. How can you believe those things and not be a Christian? That doesn't make sense to me, right? I'm just being honest. I really didn't think that anybody outside of the Christian faith was good. And if they were good, their goodness was a fake goodness, meaning it was still going to lead them to hell. Like, I know that's just crazy. Every time I say something about what I used to believe, as crazy as it might sound to you, it sounds just that crazy to me. I hear it and I think, wow, I can't believe I used to think that. So deconstruction is a journey. Reconstruction is a journey, and I would say it's a lifelong process. I mean, I'm learning and growing every single day. I'm learning and growing from you and your comments, especially the kind ones, not so much the mean ones. Those, I do actually learn a lot from that. It makes me just so thankful I'm not in that world anymore. But I hearing your story and learning what you went through and how your story is maybe similar to mine. It's just so cool. I read so many great comments. I can't say I get to every comment, but I read most of the comments, and I just can't even tell you how it just thrills my soul how what I'm talking about resonates with you, and how it maybe feeds your soul in some way, and helps give you encouragement or something, like anything good. Like that's that. Listen, I'm not selling a book. Maybe someday I'll write a book, but right now I'm not trying to sell you a book. I don't have land over in to sell you. Like, I don't have anything. I'm not selling anything. not yet. Like, I'm just sharing my story here. That's what I'm doing. I'm just telling my story, and it's been very therapeutic for me to do this, for sure. And so, if nothing else, this has been good for my heart and for my life, to speak my truth, if you will. All right, so yeah, like, obviously the biggest thing that the biggest challenge that I faced during my deconstruction process as a former evangelical pastor was just that, my beliefs. I mean, beliefs would include my worldview, the certainty that I had about certain things. The certainty about certain things. Anyway, the certainty about what was afterlife, and the certainty of what I was doing made a difference in eternity. Like, all those things, it yeah, it's just, it totally unraveled. And so clearly I went through a process, where I, just like I've said this before, but I was conservative, I was more open-minded, I was seeker friendly, I was progressive, I was more liberal, as a Christian in my theology. And then I got into even spiritual things. I got into, where I'm trying to think what that means, spiritual things, but you know what I mean? Like, I still meditate, but I don't believe in, I'm not meditating to God or anything. It's just quieting my mind, quieting my thoughts. But I got into that a little bit. It's like, in that process, and then I finally just landed where I am now. And yes, I'm still on a journey. I'll be on a journey till the day I die. I think that's true of everybody, or I would think that's the way it should be for everybody. I would hope that we're all on a journey. We're all learning and growing and being better people, and being more, enlightened, if you will, in the sense of more understanding of life, and how life is, and what matters most, and what's important, and what's not important. I think that's part of the journey of life. So that's just it. And so that was the challenge. My belief system was completely just. So let me give you the remedy that I found. It was just learning new things. For me, that's what it was. Again, being an avid reader, I just turned into education. I read books. I watch hours and hours of teaching or seminars or talks. I mean, YouTube is just like, everything's on YouTube. Now, you got to be careful. There's a lot of fruitcake, nutty things out on, So I like to, make sure that if I read something over here, then I want to read this over here. And if they say that, I want to see the rebuttal to that. Or, I really enjoy Professor Dave. Shout out to Professor Dave and his channel. I just love his, I forget what they call them, response videos, where he hears someone talk about creation and then he debunks it or whatever. Because that's, for me, I was a creationist. I mean, that's, so a little side note. When we say, well, I feel like I resonate with that, have you ever felt that way? Or have you ever heard someone say that? They'll say, I resonate with that. I feel like that, I feel good about that. you got to be careful of that, okay? Because, and what I mean by careful is not like skeptical, but you have to be, dig into that more. Because for me, as a former creationist and a Bible thumper, there are some things that I feel that are incorrect. Like I would feel like I would hear a debate between a scientist and a creationist, and something the creationist would say would actually feel more right to me. It doesn't mean that it is right. It just means that because that's what I've been used to. I'm fit, like I've said, I keep saying things over and over, but I know you might be a first time watcher. I'm 55. I spent 49 years of my life in the Christian world. Technically, I gave my heart to Christ, prayed the sinner's prayer when I was 7. So, whatever, do the math. However many years, 46, 7 years, whatever. So, most all of my life. I'm 55 now. Most all of my life until I was 49. I was a pastor. I pastored for 30 years, my own church for about 17 years. I was a youth pastor at various churches before that. Went to seminary, the whole thing, Bible college. I mean, so like like this completely overturned my life. So for me, I have to watch like Professor Dave's channel and Myth Vision and genetically modified skeptic Drew and like all these other people that are out there. I glean off and there's so many more. Sorry, I'm not mentioning all the ones that I actually watch. Didn't plan on mentioning them at all, but like I'm watching and I'm learning like, oh yeah, okay. So when I hear a creationist talking and it feels right to me, it doesn't mean that it's right. It just means that I was, brainwashed technically for all those years believing that made sense. And so as I've been unwinding that and relearning science, like for the longest time, it took me a while to say that I believed in evolution. It took me a while. Now I know that sounds crazy because evolution is a thing and has been a fact for a long time, but not to me. Not to me. I had all the rebuttals. I had all the jokes. I don't come from a monkey. They can if they want to. I mean, I used to say all that stupid, ridiculous stuff. I used to say that. And, now I know and now I understand evolution to very simply. I'm still learning. I still go and watch videos on someone who knows, who explains evolution so that I can understand it. Because for the longest time, it made sense. Everything came from Adam and Eve. I mean, that just made sense to me and it seemed right. But just because it seemed right or felt right, all that means is that it resonated with what I already believe. That's why confirmation bias is so critically important to be careful of, and being in echo chambers on no matter what you believe. It's important to think for yourself and do your own research. And by that, I don't mean just do your own research outside of listening to experts. When I say do your own research, what I mean by that is research credible voices, not some just Yahoo on TikTok or some Yahoo on YouTube, right? Like, do your research and find out who is, sharing truths or giving you a perspective. Of course, my channel is not a scientific channel, so I'm not trying to teach any specific things other than just tell my story of deconstruction, which is true to me. And it is obviously clearly true to many of you who have also gone through the same thing that I'm have gone through. So beliefs, that was the biggest challenge I faced, and the biggest thing that I did to overcome that and to work through that was learning. It was just learning new ways of thinking, learning new ways to see the world, and just learning. Like I don't know what else to say. It was just that I had to learn completely new things. So that by far was the biggest. Just two more. The second one was just my community. Like, my entire network of friends and family at that time, pretty much. Now I had work friends and and when I made work friends, I was a pastor, but work friends, I'm in the wedding business too. During that time, I was even a pastor. So I had other relationships, if you will, um, people that I interacted with who weren't Christian. But the majority, like 99% of everybody that I hung out with, sought their advice, looked up to, um, looked to, uh, 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 all that, they were all evangelical Christian. And so that was my network. And like I've said again in other videos, my family, my mom and dad, they're still evangelical Christian. But we've worked through that, so we're doing, everything's good there. It took time. It got a little wickety wackety for a while, but we're good now, and we get along great, and that can happen. So I mean, you can work through it. So point number two is my community and family. So that was the challenge. What's the answer to that? Finding new friends. You can't find new family, so you got to really press in and have long heart-to-heart talks with your family to get to a place where it can work, right? And you definitely can. I did. I love my folks. They're wonderful people. They love me. They think I'm wonderful. So we're good. My community, though, that was tough. That was tough. I did hang on to some of my friends. I still have some pastor friends. I still even have a few evangelical Pentecostal pastor friends. Now we don't hang out there. I knew them from before, and so they're in different states. In Boston, down in Oklahoma, and all that. And then I have a couple local pastor friends here in town who are Methodist. But we don't hang out all the time. I don't fellowship with them all the time. But they know where I'm at. I know where they're at, and And one of my pastor friends, the joke is, I'm actually going to have him on my show here one time. He thinks I've been deceived by the devil, and and he's told me that, and we've laughed about it. And I said, well, that's fine. I think you're being blinded by mythology, and you've been duped with lies, and you're moronic in these beliefs. Like we have that good of a friendship and relationship that he can tell me exactly what he really thinks, and I tell him exactly what I really think, and we laugh and talk about it. And so he's a good dude, and he knows I'm a good dude, and so it works. And I think that conversation that I'll have with him will be pretty fun. I'm excited to have him on the show, just to so you can actually hear from someone who actually believes still all the things that I once believed, and hear how he justifies it and how he does mental gymnastics to make it make sense. And for him, I know, because I know how he thinks, because I used to think that way. He doesn't view it as mental gymnastics. Now clearly I know that's exactly what it is, because it's like, clearly that doesn't make sense. But not when you're in that world, you make it make sense. You make it make sense. I don't know how to explain that other than that, is just you make it make sense, to where you don't have, the doubts are not in the forefront of your mind. They may be way back there. Like for me, sometimes I would do that mental gymnastics, but in my mind I would like, that does seem a little odd, doesn't it? But I was just overcome with confidence in what I was believing. So it is what it is. All right. The third, so the community thing was a big challenge, and I overcame that by finding new community, new friends, and working still on some of my older friendships. And then thirdly, this was the big one too, my career. So now I'm talking specifically to maybe a clergy member, a pastor of some sort. That was huge. That was super tough, because when I say, it was my life, it was my life. like it was my full-time job. Like I said, at the peak, the church that I pastored ran. I say 300. I should be straightforward here. It would range between 250 and 300. That's what, on good Sundays, it was closer to that 300. On bad Sundays, it was closer to that 250. Christmas and Easter, we'd have between 500 and 600. Special big picnic events, we'd have, I think there was one time we had like 1,200 people come. So, those that have been in ministry or are pastors, you understand. When you say you have 300 people, that could be anywhere from 200 to 500 in any given Sunday. And during the summer, we were definitely on the lower ends of that number. And then as we approached Easter, we were on the higher end of that number, clearly. Anyway, just to be fully clear here. So yeah, I mean, this is what I did for a living. I mean, thankfully, I've always been a little bit of like an entrepreneur at heart. And I always had side hustles. And I was doing weddings as a side hustle. I was also doing funerals as a side hustle. I was doing baby dedications as a side hustle. I was doing these other pastoral things, though you don't have to be clergy or pastoral to do funerals or weddings, clearly. And so when I walked away from the church, what I actually did was I drove Uber for a while. I was an Uber driver and did weddings. And I did that. I did Uber for almost a year. I could do a whole show on Uber, the things and the conversations and the things I experienced being an Uber driver. Dear goodness gracious, that was a wild time. So I was doing Uber during the week, weddings on the weekends, and because I really started pouring myself into weddings, that's what I did. And I also, weddings is my main thing, but I also do a lot of other little things. I ring announce for boxing events, like ladies and gentlemen out of the red corner, like all that. I do that. I MC some corporate events, luncheons. I'm a guest speaker for certain things. I mean, I do a plethora of things, but mainly what I do is weddings, and and I love it. I absolutely love working with couples on their wedding day. So that's my story. That's the three biggest challenges I faced as a former evangelical pastor going through a deconstruction process. I hope those help you. And comment below, discuss, as I always say. Subscribe, like. I appreciate all that very, very much. And I should probably mention this, a shameless plug here. I do a lot of online coaching, if you will, for people going through deconstruction process, or people going through what I went through. I've talked to a lot of people about that kind of stuff, and also relationship coaching as well. So if you need anything, hit me up through Instagram. Leave me a DM, and we'll hopefully meet and talk sometime. All right, guys, peace. Appreciate you.